Hey everybody, it looks like we might have a bit of a thin crowd today, um, but that is okay. We'll continue to push forward and do the best that we can with what we have. And I see a few other people jumping on as we head to the top of the hour. There's Tori. Tori. Well, hi everyone. I know we got a little bit of a thin crowd. I know it's a tough, busy time of the year for everybody, so I do appreciate your time. There are a couple things I hope that we can touch on, even though we're a bit of a smaller group today. So to kind of give you a rundown, um, we're gonna with the executive board approval of the updated research agenda that happened recently, we're moving more from kind of a development stage into an implementation stage. You'll get a couple updates from Tori. We might chat a bit about our March webinar that we had and talk about our May session. Um, but before we do that, I know we're a small group, but introduce yourself to the group. So my name is Kurt Nash. I'm the research committee chair, and I currently serve as the assistant dean and director of housing and residence life at Furman University in Greenville, South Carolina.
Dad, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm Paul Yard. We're talking 15 years, living every moment of it. Can't encourage the rest of you enough as Tori smiles there. Most of you got a long way to go, but been with this committee an awful long time. And Kurt, appreciate all you're doing.
15 years retired and living the dream, traveling the world and doing all sorts of cool things. Um, cool. Others like to introduce themselves?
Go ahead, Ben. You're in headlights.
I'll go next. Hi, my name is Christopher Clark. I'm an International Student Services Coordinator here in Housing and Residence Life at the University of Memphis.
Ah,
Hi, I'm Dion.
Good afternoon. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I'm Dion. I'm at Texas Tech, and I'm the managing director for University Student Housing. Sorry, go ahead.
looking good. Looking great.
All good. My name is Sarah Hart. I'm the executive director of Housing and Residence Life here at the University of Tampa.
Hey everybody, Ben Wicker, Director of the Residential Student Experience at Florida State.
And I think that just leaves me, Tori Nagash. I'm the Research Initiatives Manager at the ACUHO-I Home Office and the Staff Liaison for the Research Committee.
Thanks, everybody. Well, let's jump into our agenda. I wonder if Tori, if you could lead us through a couple of items. First, with the research agenda update and the next steps following the executive board approval. Tori, would you start us with the research agenda now that the executive board has approved it? Can you talk about if there are any kind of immediate next steps and where committee support might be needed with that?
Yeah, so now that it's approved, I think the next step is going to be an announcement about the new agenda, and then prior to that, getting our website updated with all the new information. So that is in progress. I don't know that there's any committee support needed immediately, but I think once it's announced, maybe just help spreading the word. And next year, we'll add that into our requirements for the funded research grant, that the proposals align with at least one of the new areas. And then I'll get the endorsed research application updated so it also includes that information too. But it didn't think it'd be fair to update anything until it's officially out there. So in the meantime, we're just keeping the other things the same.
Awesome. Can you also give an update on the funded research grant cycle, including where things stand with reviewer recruitment and what support you may still need?
Yeah, so we finished the first round of review. It closed after Sunday. And so now I'm going to need more reviewers for the second round, where we will be asking for a decision on funding. So the first round was evaluating the materials and giving a score for each section and then overall. And then the second round would be where we ask for a recommendation for funding. So yes, maybe or no, with maybe essentially being like maybe with revisions possible. And the reviewers for that round would have access to the scores from the first round and be able to see any comments that were left by the first reviewers to help as they're evaluating the materials. But that's the sort of the next phase. In the past, for round two, we've asked the current chair or chairs if there's more than one, and then if prior chairs, if they were not part of the first round, to join in to do that second round. But it's also open to others if you were not part of that first round of review. So I was going to be putting a call out for those folks, but since we were meeting today, I figured I'd share it here first and then send out a message. And Curtis, likely you, Ariel, Ian, Janie, Caitlin, our most immediate past chairs would be in that group that I was going to reach out to, but it's open to others as well if anyone is interested.
Tori, can you walk us through kind of what skills, background would make a good reviewer?
Yeah, I think someone who has experience with research. You don't necessarily have to be someone that's had grant funding or gone through that process. We're more interested in you evaluating the merits of the research versus, being on the grant side of it, since that's more of ACUHO-I processes. Really what we're looking for is just someone who's comfortable evaluating the different aspects for their merit and deciding whether they think it's worthwhile moving forward through the funding process. So research background could be from hands-on experience, could be educational experience, could be a mixture of the two. But really, that's what we'd be looking for.
Thanks, Tori. And I've always found kind of the evaluation rubrics to be very helpful and kind of thorough. So, if it's your first time and you're thinking about being a reviewer, you are guided through the process with those tools and resources at your fingertips. So you're not going into it blind. And I think you've got some really specific rubrics available to be able to appropriately score and review those research proposals.
I think it's helpful too that it doesn't come down to your decision. That's why I seek as many reviewers as I can, and hopefully an odd number in case there's a divide in the feedback, but so that all of the decisions are weighed, all of the feedback is weighed before a decision is made.
The last thing, Tori, before we move on to kind of a March webinar debrief, can you give us maybe a snapshot of what the April webinar will be, I believe, here coming up about storytelling, and kind of give the group kind of some information about what they can expect if they attend that one?
Yeah, I was going to just pull up the description again. I did meet with the presenters earlier this afternoon to touch base, Sherry and Matt from Benchworks by Elantra. So this is titled More Than Metrics, Turning Housing Data into Stories That Matter. Um, we, as of right before this meeting, we had 203 registrants, which may be the most I've ever seen for a research webinar. I know they've been doing their own outreach beyond what ACUHO-I does, but I think this tells us it's a popular topic and maybe something we'd even want to revisit again in the fall. But essentially, data storytelling. Their description is some data gets skimmed, some data gets remembered. The difference is often in how the story is told. In this webinar, we'll explore how housing and residence life professionals can use storytelling principles to make assessment findings more meaningful and more likely to lead to action. And so what I love about their presentations is it's very informative, but also you leave with practical tips and steps you can take to implement things in your work. And so that's what they go on to promise. And I myself tend to leave the sessions with new ideas. So from the registration list, it looks like it's a range from entry to senior level folks who've registered, which is also great. So we should have a good diverse room full of participants.
That's great. And if folks want to register for that, what is the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, I'll put the link in the chat. There's also on the ACUHO-I website upcoming events where you'll be able to find that information too, but there is the link to register.
Thanks, Tori. That's helpful. Really looking forward to that. If you have time to attend, please encourage you to do so. Last month, we had a webinar that focused on IRB and research ethics. We had far less than 200 webinar participant attendees, but still pretty good turnout. I think hopefully folks learned a good bit. We actually, in our meeting today, we have our two panelists. So I'm not going to put them on the spot just yet with sharing their insights, but hopefully want to kind of debrief that and talk about what maybe went well. The key themes that were included in our in the IRB webinar is we assessed rising risk levels, protecting participants, and applying ethics in real scenarios. For those of you who attended, and if you weren't able to attend, I might kind of lean on Dion and Mike to talk a bit about from that webinar, what do you think kind of landed most? Kind of what was kind of a big takeaway that you may have had that folks might have found meaningful?
I would hope that maybe what they found was that being prepared and really thinking through, really having a logical perspective of how you're going to make your requests, make sure that everything is, all your I's are dotted, your T's are crossed, and that you're utilizing, an ethical approach to the whole process. But it's so important. It's foundational. And I know in doing reviews, I mean, that's one of the big things that we look for is, what stage is your IRB approval in? And so I don't know, to me, it was just about the preparation and the making sure you front load it and not wait till the last minute and try to throw something together.
I think that's very good. And one of the other things I would say is that use the resources available to you. You don't have to do this all on your own. Your university will have people, whether it be grants office, a research corporation, the IRB, entity itself. Those people are very knowledgeable and usually very eager to help you get through this process.
I also really particularly found meaningful, helpful, the conversation that the two of you led on how to protect participants and the purpose of why we do that and some of the negative implications that could happen if we don't take those appropriate steps to take those individuals into consideration. Tori, do you know if there were any feedback post survey if we were able to administer that survey?
Yeah, I sent the link when I sent out the recording. It looks like we did not receive any. The last ones we received were for the endorsed research webinar.
Sure. So kind of the next question I had with this, but it might not be that fruitful of a conversation, but ideas of what should we carry forward from this or kind of lessons learned. I don't know, maybe necessarily that the topic perhaps resonated with people, and that's maybe why attendance might have been low or the time of day. The main purpose of these webinars is to, be a community of learners. And we want to do topics that people will find helpful and intentional in their work. So, perhaps we can segue this into talking about our May webinar and what potential ideas we might have kind of in lieu of a less than attended IRB and ethics webinar. And there were kind of three topics that, in one of our initial meetings back in, I believe in January, a couple of the ideas were dissertation to practice pipeline, conducting research as a practitioner. And I believe what we meant by that was balancing research with our full-time roles and building partnerships. And then a hot topics in housing research right now. So kind of a curated look at what our current emerging trends are. But we certainly do not have to stick to those three. Those were just from the list that we generated back in January. So wondering as we go from kind of a less than participated webinar to one that's going to be very well attended here in April, thoughts about how we can continue that momentum into May.
I wonder if one talking about different methodologies would be a decent idea. Maybe give a 10-minute, 15-minute, synopsis of these are the types of research that are common, in this field, and maybe a snapshot of how to undertake them, how that might look, how you're going to look at your data after, gather it, identify it, run the numbers and so on, that kind of stuff.
Okay. One kind of research methodologies,
Yeah.
introduction into
and maybe part of that could be on the back end, identifying which ones people would be more interested in, and then getting lists or being able to find other people on the call who have the same interest, and then you could ideally collaborate down the road.
Okay. So it could be an opportunity where we introduce these topics and then put people in different breakout groups and try to lead individual sessions. I think that could be an interesting take on things.
Maybe it's too ambitious, I don't know, but it was just an idea I had.
Yeah. Other thoughts?
I'd say with the timing in May, we just have to probably not one best time for everyone, but consider what might be the best time frame to schedule. Also, I think the plan was to, because of Campus Home Live, to not hold anything in June and then probably also not in July. So this would be the last webinar until the fall, till August. So it might also be helpful to think ahead to what you might want to do for August too.
I don't
Leanne?
Go ahead.
I was thinking along the same lines of Tori, with thinking that May could be a busy time. And I know something I'm looking forward to is getting over the hurdle of closing and jumping into summer projects. So maybe to garner some interest, trying to share why whatever topic we choose in May is going to be helpful for maybe people who shift to project-based work, and kind of focusing on that. something that I was also thinking before when you were talking, Kurt, was when we're picking these topics, it's important to kind of share why somebody might get value out of it. So maybe the marketing of it too. I think the April one will be well attended because so many people are doing assessment and want to share their stories, especially in housing, because we're always sharing flyers, newsletters, things like that. So um, making sure people understand why it's valuable to them, telling them, hey, you have a chunk of time coming up that you might be able to actually focus on something. So make it, enticing for them to get a head start on how their workload might shift.
We are adding now for all of our webinars, which competencies are addressed in that webinar. Just that's being added to all of the descriptions now, so folks will be able to see how that aligns, what outcomes essentially they'd be achieving. I'm wondering if we want to do something, and it doesn't have to be related to the Campus Housing Index, but I'm thinking of the Campus Housing Index because data collection will be starting August 1. Some people use the summer to sort of start prepping for that or thinking ahead for that. So I don't know if that would be an opportunity to maybe partner with the CHI committee to co-host something. But that is just an idea that popped in my head too.
Maybe something for next fall would be some aspect of AI incorporation or concern. I don't want to say concern. Just AI incorporation into the process, because I would imagine that's probably already happened, if not beginning to be a part of the research process, and how to navigate that. Maybe, I don't know. I haven't thought that out, but AI has been on my mind lately because I've been working with some other stuff on that, and I think that might be something eventually, maybe not right now, but down the road.
Yeah, I'm thinking too that, part of that conversation could also be ethics again. I just saw a webinar coming up for social work related to practice with AI and ethics in social work. But so that's on my mind, is thinking of, research ethics and AI use too.
I think, Gianna, that or the AI, I think you may have really touched on one of those hot topics. There's so many different angles that we can approach it. Campuses are all over the place on how they're managing AI. My home institution, we have kind of thrown in the towel and purchased an AI product. And because we know, our faculty, staff, students, they're all going to use it. They probably already are. So we want something that we have some at least perceived protection of our data. So, we could certainly find do some interesting topics around AI, kind of a two-part series. I like Tori's idea of let's do some bookend things, something, that kind of wraps up this spring semester and then kicks us off for a fall semester. I don't know how folks think about AI, but, clearly kind of an AI in ethics research. And some other kind of second part to it. Be interested to hear people's thoughts about that and if they think it's a worthwhile endeavor.
Yeah, I think the CHI one could be like an August one too, when data collection is starting. AI, I would definitely say, I think we should keep it on the list. I'm wondering if you could find other hot topics and sort of do AI plus some other things in one webinar. So maybe touch on a few. But I think AI could definitely be its own webinar or series too.
AI might fit in well with the third one that Curtis mentioned of like the current trends or something along those lines. Is that what it was, Curtis? What was the third idea?
Yeah, so the third idea that the committee had back in January, or one of the ideas was how topics and housing research right now. So it's where we kind of give a real focused look at emerging trends.
AI might fit in well with that. Yeah.
So Tor, if the CHI, would you recommend that more of as a May or as an August?
I'm thinking it might be better suited around the time data collection is starting, to coincide with the outreach we're going to be doing through email and social media related to that. And that would also give time. I think it'd be a good opportunity to collaborate with the CHI committee, in hosting and sharing about the index. And it's likely we're going to have some updates this year, to share too. So that could be also an opportunity to share about those as well.
I remember we had a webinar not too long ago on CHI data. Would this kind of be a CHI 2.0, and kind of what would be some of the differences in this
Yeah,
webinar?
I think it'd be more. So I think part of it would be like, what is the CHI? Why should you participate? Here are some updates that, you'll notice this year if you participate. For one, there'll be a new user experience because they've done some updates to that end, and we're reviewing the instrument, so there may be some questions that are also updated. So that would be a chance to sort of talk about that a little bit. But then also, I think with who we'd have from the CHI committee, they could also talk more about sort of the practical side, like using the data, why the benefits of participating, for your institution with benchmarking, that sort of a thing.
So how do folks feel about doing that kind of CHI in May, webinar in May, and then in August have kind of an AI focused webinar that we take, time over the summer to develop?
I even think the CHI one could be September, because data collection is August to November. So, if you wanted to put a pin in it, because for May we probably won't have updates to share yet,
Okay.
for sure.
So then maybe
I mean,
vice versa, do the AI in May and
yeah,
then CHI in August.
looks like there might be some chat ideas too. I haven't been reading, but I see some messages there. Oh, looks like talking about AI.
AI.
Yeah, I had said that at ACUHO-I we have access to Copilot through Ohio State. So, as there's like a work version that we have access to that's been approved to use with certain types of data, that is considered secure, confidential. But yeah, so I think that's what's been discussed there. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you think there's time to do an AI one for May, awesome. I don't know if we'd have to find probably really great presenter who maybe already has something developed. Or if you wanted to do something with like several hot topics, maybe, I don't know if that would be easier to put together, talk about AI for 15 minutes versus a full 50 minutes plus.
Yeah, it could be challenging. I mean, we could do kind of a roundtable where, we pick some seasoned practitioners who have begun, at their institutions to utilize AI in their, whether it's with research or assessment with their teams, and talk about some of the challenges and pitfalls around it. So, we don't necessarily need technical expertise, but folks who are, currently using it, who are practitioners, and some of their initial impressions and challenges with it. I saw some in there. It looks like David, you've been using it for doing some regression analysis and looking at different variables and outcomes.
Yeah, in a variety of things like staff satisfaction surveys. Vaughn talked about it in the chat around taking and applying his Benchworks data to it, and then looking at satisfaction between people in double and triple rooms. It's really nice to be able to run that analysis that, would take me probably several hours, because I'd be reminding myself of the statistical process while I was figuring out what I wanted to do. So yeah, it's very useful in that way. And the work and web version, which was what Tori was talking about with Copilot, if your institution has that lets you, if you flip it to work, it puts a bubble where it looks and where it shares that's just within an improved sphere that's defined by the institution. So it doesn't put your data at risk at all. It doesn't violate any of your data security protocols that your IT folks might have, or any confidentiality pieces, because nothing's going outside of the institutional bubble. So if you want the shortest way to drive from Corvallis to Columbus, you need to go into the web mode to do that, because work has no idea. But yeah.
Yeah, I just wondered if there are other folks, I'm sure there are, similar to David, who are using the AI tools in very similar ways. I've been on it from kind of the policy ethics standpoint, part of university committees who are trying to set the parameters and governance for how faculty, staff, and students should use. So we might be able to tackle it from multiple angles as well. Kellyanne, I see your hand there.
Yeah, I was just going to add to the conversation point about it could be 15 minutes on just AI, the roundtable, or a whole entire session. I think determining who the audience is, if it's trying to convince our peers to use AI and here's how it's useful, it could be an entire session. If you're just trying to kind of speak to that kind of beginner, someone who's already convinced that they want to use it, already have access to, then I think it can be that more roundtable style. I don't see, I think either way, it can be more than 15 minutes, but I think it's a very valuable conversation topic.
Other thoughts?
I just have another use case if people want to hear. So I took my stale old invite around the Benchworks surveys that I've used for years and years, and I loaded it into Copilot, and I said, now write an informal version of this centered around a cheesy dad joke, and it and then I proceeded to go several iterations around just kind of crazy silly things, and that actually helped my response rate quite a bit, to kind of shake that up a little bit. And it took 30 seconds. So that's the other big advantage.
Well, let's maybe give it a stab at putting together, an agenda, thinking about who our audience is and how we want to frame that. I wonder, if someone might be willing to work with me to kind of create that agenda. And then from there, we can try to find some folks, some practitioners who are using it in ways that we think might lead to a really robust conversation.
I think there was recently some type of AI webinar through ACUHO-I. I think it might have been like a SOP virtual presentation or something. I can look back through and see, and maybe that would be someone who we could also reach out to see if they'd want to join as a panelist.
Awesome. Kellyanne, great. Yeah, I love your help with that agenda. Um, anyone else want to connect? You can send a message, Mike. Perfect. Just jotting down names. Perfect. Okay. Well, Kellyanne and Mike, I'll send an email out to you sometime tomorrow, and we can get connected to get cracking on that agenda. Perfect. But I guess kind of moving us along a bit. Let's see here. Were there anything else, Tori, that we might have been missing? Any notes or announcements that need to be made?
I think I'll just reiterate from the beginning, since I think we have some new faces that weren't here when I was talking about the funded research grant. We are going to be doing the second round of review now, which is where reviewers would be making a funding recommendation. So if you are interested in serving as a reviewer for that portion, you can let Kurt or myself know. And happy to have your expertise involved in that process. But I'd be looking to have that starting the end of this week or beginning of next week at the latest. So that'd sort of be like the timeline, typically around a week or so to review those materials. That way we can get final decisions and notify the recipients. Otherwise, we've now had 4 endorsed research applications come in sort of rapid succession. And the last 2 came in like a day apart, I think, or 2 days apart, right when the grant closed. So I held off a little bit on sending out those for review, but they are under review now. The first 2 were approved, and I'm working with those researchers. And so we'll see what the outcome is for the other 2. But 4 is more than we had all of last year. So we'll see what the rest of the year holds. But it's already been busy, and it's not even halfway through yet. So yeah, I think that's it from me.
Thanks, Tori. Appreciate those updates. Well, I think that's all that we have. I'll connect with Kellyanne and Mike about the May webinar. And we hope to see all of you at the April webinar here coming up. And if you just logged in, Tori put in the chat how you can sign up for the webinar on research and storytelling. It seems like a really worthwhile webinar to attend, and there are well over 200 people already signed up. And she just put it back in the chat. Perfect. Awesome. With that, well, everyone have a terrific afternoon, and we'll see you next time.